WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. This time it's rare, it's exotic, it's wow. The Excalibur 1973 vintage, 48 years old, blended Scotch whiskey. Yeah! So we have the different distilleries. We have Teaninich, we have Macduff, Dailuaine, Clynelish, and as the grain part, it's Invergordon. Now, there was a 1972 Excalibur. That was 2017. That was here, exactly. So they had 42.2 ABV. Now we have a Whiskybase number 216519. 1973 is the vintage, and bottled 2022. So it's 48 years old. I'm going to read the entire label here just real quick because all the information on here is here and some might be missing in my case. So first of all, we have limited edition single cask. Good product of Scotland, Excalibur, blended Scotch whiskey. We have here Donald Hart, okay, the chairman, 1973 vintage. We have Andrew Hart, the director. We have a blend of Clynelish in this order, Dailuaine, Macduff, Teaninich, and Invergordon, aged 48 years. And on the side, we have distilled 1973, bottled 2022, aged 48 years, wood type, refill sherry butt, cask number 40997, number of bottles 531. 531, yes. Distilled, matured, and bottled in Scotland. Meadowside Blending Limited in Glasgow, Scotland. 70 CLs, 40.3 ABV. Now, what's really, really cool is since the UK is no longer in Europe, and for Europe we have to have the importer here, well, they could not actually decide who's the importer. And so they put down the 4 different countries' importer on it. So we have, for example, Alba Import in Germany. We have Win Dranken in the Netherlands. We have Clydesdale in Sweden. And we have Gillespie and Partner in Austria, in Vienna. So all 4 of the addresses are here. I've never seen this before. This is a totally new experience for me. Usually there's only one, but hey, that's one way of doing it. There's nothing wrong with 4 different labels. 531 bottles. Now, I have some theories, and some of my theories might be totally wrong, and some of my theories might be absolutely head-on. Now, the first question is, was this for the entire 48 years in one single sherry butt? I don't think so. So, the next question is there artificial coloring in here? It doesn't say natural color anywhere. So, if you look at the color here, it is very dark. It's not the normal sherry darkness that we have. These are what I personally call a sherry syrup cask. These are casks made for the industry, for the whiskey industry. It says here, refill sherry butt. So, hey, I use it to finish a whiskey for 6 to 8 months. And I take that sherry butt that was prepared extra for the whiskey industry with a special type of syrup dark sherry. Not something I'm going to use to actually fill up as sherry, but it fulfills the legal requirements of Spain of being as sherry. The region has to be right. The Palomino grapes have to be right. It has to be aged in a bodega, and that's about it. And it has to have a oxidizing aging process. No flor, no yeast layer on top of that. That's it. That's sherry. That's even oloroso, which I talked about. We don't even need to talk about the type of oxidation or non-oxidative maturation product. And it doesn't even have to be used as sherry later on. It doesn't have to be used as sherry vinegar. It doesn't have to be used as sherry in the bottle. They can just actually recycle this sherry syrup many, many times for the casks. Now, do I know this? No. Does it taste like it? Unfortunately, yes. So, the last thing that we don't know is 40.3%. Is that cask strength? There's no mention whatsoever about cask strength. What can happen is that old whiskeys, 48 years, go under the 40%. They're no longer whiskey. What you can do is, if they're 35, 38, and so on, you can actually add whiskey to it and bring it back up to 40%. But Jason, are there whiskeys out there that are 48 years old and have enough ABV? Well, here I have a bottle of Cooper's Choice Golden Grain. This is a blended grain Scotch whiskey, 50 years old with 50%. So 50 years old, 50%. All right, so what you do is, for example, you have here, I have my 531 bottles. I have 0.7, and I just do my math real quick, and I get a total of 371.7 liters of alcohol. So of whiskey that I need for the 531 bottles, 0.7. So what do? As I take, for example, 200 liters of single malt under 40% from the distilleries of Teaninich, Macduff, Dailuaine, Clynelish. It's not worth that much anymore. And then I actually add 40% or so of 50% or even higher grain, and that averages out to 40.3. One possibility. The other possibility, why 40.3? Well, maybe they actually just added some water to this as well, got it down to the maximum amount of bottles. So we would have had 490 bottles. Hey, let's put some water in this. We get it down to 40.3. Perfect, the maximum amount of bottles, and we still think that maybe it might be a cask strength version, which there's no indication on the label anywhere about it. So what we have here is the Meadowside Blending. So they are good. So we have, for example, the Malt Men, we have the Grain Men, we have the Granary, we have the Royal Fistel, we have the Vital Spark. We have some very, very interesting things that Meadowside Blending have done and are doing. And I must admit, I like a lot of their stuff. All right, so what do I have here? I have my 50-year-old blended grain. I have a little bit left in my glass for my video in German. And I just poured my 48-year-old whiskey. The price in Germany is 319 euros. The same bottle in the Netherlands is 389 euros. Why does it cost basically 80 euros more there? There's one reason that I can think of. The name of the importer. That's the reason. So we in Germany got, I think, the majority of the 531 bottles. I actually had two. I was able to buy one and sell it on to a friend of mine. And so he's going to be very, very happy. And I think this is the perfect bottle for anyone who has their birthday in the year of 1973. A little tip from WhiskyJason here. I have celebrated, it's almost 3 years ago now, my 50th birthday. And in that year, I looked around for a bottle of 50-year-old whiskey. Interesting enough, everything from that year that was 50 years old was suddenly about 200 euros more than it was the year before. Why? Because not only I was looking for 50-year-old whiskey, many other people were looking for whiskey from the year that I was born, the year they were born. So what I would recommend is to everyone out there that's turning 30, 40, 50, whatever, and you say, hey, I had my date of birth, my year of birth is 1973. I'm not 50 yet. I will be 50 in 2023. Buy the bottle now. And then you actually have a bottle now for your birth year that will definitely be 50, if not 100% more expensive 1 year later. Because everyone's looking for that 50-year-old bottle to give as a present to that 50-year-old person. And as when you gift yourself, buy it earlier. When someone else gifts you or you want to give someone else, buy it early as well. So if we have any partners out there and you want to give your significant other something, a wonderful present for their birthday from the year of their birth, buy it a year or two before that. And then just store it away, keep it safe, and then gift it to them, and they'll be amazed. They won't be, oh, I'm so sorry. It would have been so much better if it would have been bottled in my year of my birthday. If you have a birthday in January, not going to be possible. It's not going to make it from the distillery to your home within those couple of weeks. Live with the fact that this whiskey was made in the year of your birth, and everyone's going to be happy. All right, so a lot of conspiracy, a lot of information, a lot of tips here. Now, let's nose this. The nose is fabulous. The very first thing I get is leather. I get prunes. I get dark, rich cherries. I get a tiny little bit of vanilla. Get oak. Get old furniture. A little bit of leather, Chesterfield armchair. And for me, a tiny little bit of caramel. Now, on the side of the bottle, we have official tasting notes. Aroma, rum-soaked raisins, toffee, and vanilla. Now, I did not get any raisins. I did not get any rum. I did not get any toffee. So, to be very honest, when I talk about whiskeys, I often get caramel, butterscotch. I get toffee, which is a little tiny thing you can eat with caramel and chocolate and nougat and a hazelnut. I have talked about taffy, but I hardly ever have the word toffee, T-O-F-F-E-E, in my vocabulary. All right, but rum raisins. Still don't get it. Get a little bit of strawberry now instead of the prunes. Very nice. Now, this nose is great. I'm going to give it like a B on the nose. But yet, the entire time I'm smelling this, it's just like, that's almost like your syrup sherry casks. This is not, I've had whiskeys that are older with sherry, Paxaret. Yeah, that was allowed in 1973. So if this really was a sherry, but from 1973, which I don't think it is, that would mean they would have used Paxaret back then, and I really don't think you would have gotten this color from that. Personal opinion. Cheers. Wow. Good, and yet there's a certain amount of disharmony here. The leather is fighting against the alcohol. There's an alcohol sharpness, but yet there's an oiliness in here, and it's not actually in harmony with the strawberry fruit moment. All these things are going on, and yet it's just like a concert where at the beginning they're tuning their instruments where it's just not yet there. And then they start and it's like, it's the before they start. They have the instruments and they're all playing their own thing, but they're not jiving yet together. What really is interesting is there's that old wood moment, but there's also this strong pepper alcohol sharpness, as if one of these whiskeys up the Teaninich, Macduff, Dailuaine, Clynelish, maybe the Invergordon, maybe one of those casks had been in an inactive cask the entire time. And it's just hot. See, I'm going from the assumption that this was actually created, put in one sherry butt, and then sold to us as a single cask. And it did not mature in a single cask for 48 years, but I think there were probably at least 5 different casks involved here. And they just put it all together and said, ta-da! We're going to sell this as a vintage 1973 whiskey, which is fabulous. I love that. Yeah, I love the price. 319 euros is actually a bargain for a 48-year-old blended Scotch whiskey. Often I say 10 euros per year. 48 means 480 euros would be a price that would almost be acceptable for this whiskey. And yet it's only 320. Now, I'm not recommending you go out and buy this whiskey for the flavor profile. I'm recommending you go out and buy this bottle if it's your birth year, 1973. All right, so I'm trying to imagine, someone gave this to me as a blind sample. Said, Jason, try this. And I just, okay. There's A lot of sherry. It feels like a sherry finish. Behind that sherry finish is a little bit of heat. There's some dark wood in here. It's older. I would not be surprised, blind, if I would say this is 20 plus years. But it feels like a 20 plus year finished whiskey. There's a lot of those bright fruits, strawberry, plum, a little bit of a, almost like a but like blackberries. Go for blackberries, plums, that's what, strawberries, that's what we're going for, yeah. And it tastes new. The sherry tastes new, but the whiskey behind there is old. I would say, hey, this is actually like a C plus whiskey. And they would reveal it and say, Jason, this is a vintage 1973 48-year-old blended Scotch whiskey from my refill sherry butt. I go, oh, that's special. What's the ABV? Is it like 43, 44? No, it's 40.3. I was like, oh, okay, very, very good. So it's 48 years old. What I'm going to have to pay for this? Probably a single cask, yes. Oh, that's going to make it more expensive. This is going to be like 400 euros plus. No, it's only 320. And I'd be like, all right, wow, not bad. Not going to buy it. So that's just me. Yeah. Often I just don't feel worthy of whiskeys at this age. Now, if I go to the 50-year-old single grain real quick, there's that vanilla moment going on here. I actually bought this bottle a couple years ago. It only had like 20 CLs left. This is something I've been enjoying over the time. This is something I just pull out and ask the question, and this is going to be my question of the day. What is your oldest whiskey you've ever had? Now, I said this to someone and over here in Germany. He's a fellow YouTuber. His name is Whiskey Bubbler. I just enjoy his content, doing good stuff. And he loves a lot of these old antique whiskeys. And he said, Jason, I had a whiskey from 1958 and it was 12 years old. It's like, wait a second, you mean it was bottled 1970? Exactly. I was like, that doesn't count. That's not old. It's 12. I asked the question of what's the oldest whiskey you've had? Not when the whiskey was produced, but how old was it in the cask? And he said, oh, okay. And then it was like 50. I was like, all right, good, no problem. So the oldest one I think I've ever had is 50 years old. This is 48. What is your oldest whiskey? And please write beside it, good, great, or not worth it. That'd be interesting, right? So for example, the 50-year-old here, actually not worth it. The 48-year-old, in my opinion, for the money, 320 over in Netherlands, 390 euros, definitely not worth it. Not for that flavor experience, in my personal opinion. But that's the way sometimes things are. More than vanilla, more of a creaminess. Interesting whiskey. All right, so now if you see one of the 531 bottles out there and you can get the chance to actually have a sample, go for it. Oh, it says here, on the palate, subtle spice, Christmas cake, sherry, and Turkish delight. The finish is very smooth and creamy with syrupy plum and sugared almonds. Don't get any of the almonds. It's my problem here. If you were born 1973, start looking now for the bottles that you might want to buy, or a bottle and share on your birthday, open with friends and so on. If you were born 1974, look as well. If you were born 1972, sorry. Take a look at the prices and compare it with prices from 1973. Your best guess will be going for a grain from that time or a blended scotch. Those are things that might still be available out there. And if you're from whatever else, from 1984 or 3, start looking now, and so on and so on. Some people like to have the birthday whiskeys there for their vintage years. All right, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, tell others. WhiskyJason here, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys often. And what was your oldest whiskey you've ever had in your glass? Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.